What is up, everybody? We out here? I think we are out here. Probably are. Forgive the crappy lighting and camera from my MacBook Pro. Let me actually see if I could. Probably helped a little bit. Probably didn't. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Before I introduce whatever I'm doing right now, I'm gonna share the link and stuff on the socials. Niall. I think that's how you say your name, right? What's up? I'm gonna, yeah, let me share this real quick. All right. Like the, oh, so Nile. Oh, yo, I like that actually. That's
Beyonce
really
made
cool.
a song.
Huh?
Beyonce made a song.
Oh, really? Do you want to sing it?
No, I don't remember how it goes.
I mean,
It's called The Nile. I
you
think.
can look up the lyrics, then you can sing.
Mm-mm. Wait, actually, I'm gonna play it. Hold up.
One time I took a swim in the Nile.
This could be your
I swam the whole
like
way,
your theme
didn't turn
song.
around, and I swear it made me relax when I came down. I felt liberated like three birds. I'm stimulated now. Blinding away unless my body's on top. All of these currents might cost me my mind. Right now, when danger finds me, it follows the tides. 8 miles ahead of me, still I'm in stride. She said, hey, little buddy, where you going? I'm not sure, but I know I'm still motion. You say radar, I say radar. These streets may take me out to the ocean. Tell myself if I dive in it without precaution of a life jacket, then I'll dive in it till I'm exhausted and I'm type like waistline on 4D, senses on 4D. Feel like there's for me. One time I took a swim in the Nile. One time I swam the whole way, I didn't turn around. Man, I swear, it made me relax when I came down. I felt liberated like three birds were stimulated now. Blinding away unless my body's on top.
Am I gonna get in trouble?
Nah,
For
I don't think so.
copyright?
Actually, I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe. I'm not trying to monetize this anyway. It's
But
just
it could still get taken down.
oh, great. That'd be disappointing. Wait, I'm gonna give it like 30 more seconds. All right. So what's up, everyone? Like I said, I'm here actually with Jamila. We don't know whether or not she's staying to actually say anything or not. But just wanted to share what has been going on in the mind of Denzel. And let's see, where do I even start? I think the first thing that I'll go ahead and talk about is the socionics versus MBTI or Myers-Briggs. I know that y'all, for those of y'all who already like follow me on Twitter and everything, then y'all may be aware that although I'm an ENFJ in the Myers-Briggs system, I'm an IEE or ENFP in the socionics system. And I posted a link to this video with someone named Jack. If you look him up on YouTube, his name is World Socionics. Really young, good-minded fellow. And we were just discussing a lot of different things about like Myers-Briggs and socionics. And in my opinion, it didn't make sense to have them be like that different of systems. But after like doing much more research and work and like, you know, looking at the descriptions and especially in that discussion that I had with Jack, then it came about that like I was just definitely for sure not a beta type, as in like in the socionic system I was not EIE, IEI, logical sensing introvert. Yes, the LSI or sensing logical extrovert, SLE. Pretty much all of the types that value FENISETI. I wasn't that because they're he said, I don't know. What's good, homie? But yeah, in socionics, they go by a different set of rules. And although it comes from Carl Jung and everything, it wasn't, according to popular belief, it was not like made as like an addition to the Myers-Briggs. Both of them kind of looked at what Carl Jung did and they kind of like made their own version of that. So one of the ways that I like to look at that is kind of like how Latin is like the base foundation of most languages. And then pretty much from there, you now have like Portuguese and Spanish. And Spanish and Portuguese are similar languages, similar dialects, but they're not the same. And so there are just some words in Spanish that if you say them, a Portuguese person will understand, or it might be different. Like it might, that word might be in the Portuguese language, but it might be either pronounced differently or might have like a different like meaning than what the Spanish speaker is trying to actually convey. And so when we are here in the type community, we're all kind of like speaking the same words, but we might not all be speaking the same language or the same dialect. And unless if we're aware of that, then that's something that could fall into the mix. And so like in socionics, FI means something pretty different than what it means in the Myers-Briggs system. A lot of you have already watched my videos on the functions of the Myers-Briggs system. That's what I specialize in. And FI is a lot more about like the values that one may hold and, getting really in tune with not only your own values, but like your emotions and exploring the nuance of those different emotions and self-expression and stuff like that. While in socionics, according to what I believe, it's more about the individual relationships that you have with other people and like an attentiveness to those specific dynamics. And so although in the Myers-Briggs system, I don't value FI, and I can't ever really see myself as an FI valuing type, especially because I value FE in the Myers-Briggs system. In the socionics system, going by their definition, it's very easy to see like, yeah, no, I definitely value FI. But also with NE in the socionics system, I found it interesting that one of the things that they said was like NE in the socionic system is not necessarily like looking at, oh, what if scenarios, but pretty much just looking at I have to like go back and read it for you guys, but give me a second. Give me one moment. Yeah, it says to an IEE, the question "what if" usually applies to something that the IEE can do to change his future, not some sort of alternate reality, such as "what if I bike instead of drive to work," as opposed to "what if gravity didn't exist." So that's kind of like a comparison of like the Myers-Briggs NE versus the socionics NE. And so yeah, that's some stuff that really like was interesting. And although like in me and Jack's video, they were going down the ESE route, which would be ESFJ. And I put air quotes because hopefully we know by now that these types are not easily translatable. Like IEEs and socionics did not automatically mean ENFP. in the Myers-Briggs system, just like ENFP in the Myers-Briggs system does not automatically mean IEE in socionics, because they're looking at the metabolism, the function metabolism. I think that's the word that they're using. And that's pretty much like looking at how functions operate together, like in blocks. And so that's something that I definitely have found interesting, and I've been like reading into, looking at. And if you guys want to like learn more about that, I recommend checking out World Socionics here on YouTube. He's been interviewing a lot of people, and it's been very fascinating whenever I have gotten the chance to go and check those out. But yeah, so I've confirmed that I'm an ENFJ in the Myers-Briggs system, and I'm an IEE in the socionics system. So that's pretty interesting, and those are not directly translatable. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about. And if you guys like have any like comments or anything on that, y'all can go ahead and post them. I'm gonna check out the comments before I move on to something else. Niall said, I noticed that the third and fourth functions in socionics are different than in MBTI, but the first two functions are the same. Yes and no. They are the same. In socionics, it's kind of like blocks. So I see, the way I see it at least, is it's still going by the regular functions, but how consciously we use those functions is how they kind of like stack them or order them a lot of times. And so for an EIE, so an ENFJ is what they'd call it in the socionic system, they would still have FE&I, so that would be the first block, and then the next block would still be SETI, but then I believe that FINE could be the block that's like in between, but it's only like talking about like a different type of consciousness, where they're talking about the demonstrative function and all of that. And so, yeah, it gets very like complicated. And I don't want to say things that are not true because I'm still learning about it. And so I just highly recommend checking out World Socionics, his YouTube channel, and then you guys could probably like, find out more about that. But yeah, that's how I see it so far. Like there's names for all of it, and it still does go in order, and they're using the 8 function model, but they're going more with like blocks. And a block is, when two functions are being moved together. So like FI blocked with SE is what an ISFP would have. NE blocked with FI is what an ENFP would have, stuff like that. Or FI blocked with NE is what an INFP would have. And once again, like I personally would prefer to use the actual terms like EIE, IEE, LSE, stuff like that, just so that, we know when you're talking about socionics types and socionic functions versus the Myers-Briggs types and Myers-Briggs functions. So that's just something that, once again, like, just to be aware of when you're speaking that language. Who's that next to you? This is my wife.
Hello.
That's right. And how many stupid white girls have you betted by saying all of this? Honestly, 0 so far. I'm still working on that though. But yeah, eventually, who knows? 2020 is going to be a whole new year. So be rooting for me, sir. Niall, kind of like Kit Kat and Hershey, both chocolate candy, but still did. Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you get it, man. That's it. All right. So moving on to the next topic, and in case if anybody else wants to go ahead and put that in, like go back to a different this topic, we can come back full circle. Hi guys, I've learned my ABCs whilst listening for the last 2 minutes. Well, I wouldn't learn your ABCs from us because we're not going in the right order. But keep on working on that, man. Keep on working on that. So yeah, the next thing that I was going to share was I've been pondering a lot about like what truth is. And I've been talking to a few friends, and pretty much I I think the best way that I've been able to put it is that I believe in an absolute truth. I believe in a truth that that is just absolute, that it's infallible, pretty much. Like, it exists, and anything that's contrary to it is just not the truth. But I also believe that that is my subjective view of truth. And so, to make that more simple and to kind of like break that down, that's just like my thesis, I guess, is that the question pretty much becomes, how do we ever know when we have like the right answer for things? A lot of people believe that there's multiple truths in the world. That's their subjective view of truth. Now, for me, I don't necessarily believe in multiple truths. I believe in the idea of like non-contradiction. And so, if I say that my envelope is laying there on the floor, and then somebody says that at 7:11 p.m. Denzel's envelope was not laying on the floor, I don't believe that it could be both on the floor and not on the floor at the same time. Like, one of those, because they're contradicting each other, one of those, and directly contradicting each other at that, one of those has to be right and one of those has to be wrong. And so I do believe that this is how it works, like in the universe. Like, even if we don't know the right answer to something, that doesn't necessarily negate that there is a right answer to something. And so another example is just to like kind of like make it like really big. And I'm not trying to make this like an actual debate. I'm not saying that this is like what I actually believe or actually don't believe, but the whole flat earth versus round earth thing. I could say that the earth is round, and somebody else could say that the earth is flat. Somebody else could say that the earth is in a cube form, for all we know. And there could be all three of us. And none of us can actually probably prove any of our points to be valid. However, that doesn't mean that none of us are right. But that also doesn't mean that one of us is that none of us are wrong. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So in essence, if I believe that the world is round, somebody else believes that the world is flat, and then somebody else believes that the world is a cube, and we can't prove that, like I can't prove the world is round, that doesn't automatically mean that the world is not round. Because for all we know, we could fly up out to space and then finally observe it for ourselves, instead of trusting NASA and whatever our history books are telling us or whatever. And then we could see like, oh, okay, so that is just right there the absolute truth. What our perception of the truth does not change what the truth is. I think that's what I'm pretty much like trying to say. So again, like even for things like people who believe in God or people who don't believe in God, like whether God exists or not does not depend on what you believe. If I believe in God, that doesn't make him real. If you don't believe in God, that doesn't make him not real. God will still exist whether you believe in him or not. And if he hypothetically doesn't exist, he will not exist whether you believe in him or not. Like, our subjective perceptions of truth have nothing to do with what truth may actually be. And so that's something that I've been thinking about. And therefore, the best things that we can do in a lot of situations is to simply find out our reasoning behind why we believe whatever we believe. So in the Myers-Briggs system, I would personally see this as TI. These are the logical reasons, or this is my reasoning for why I believe whatever I believe. So me being a Christian, for example, of course, I can't 100% prove to everybody that, Christianity is the right faith and Jesus did come in the birthed and into a virgin, and then he lived 33 years living a perfect life, and then he died for our sins, so that anybody who believes this, and he resurrected on the third day, so that anybody who believes this, will be saved, and yada yada yada. I may not be able to prove that personally, but I have a whole bunch of reasons as to why I can confidently believe that. And I think that I think that people have a lot of their reasonings for a lot of things in general. And so therefore, when it comes to debating, for example, I personally don't like arguing in the way that I see it. I think that when people, like I said, from how I define it, when I see people argue, what I see is person A believes something very strongly and person B believes something very strongly. And rather than try to see which one of them is actually right, or to see if both of them are actually wrong, then they clash together, trying very hard to defend their points. And so the argument doesn't necessarily become a search for what is truth, but rather a battle for what may be let's see, how can I put it? It's not necessarily a search for what is truth, but a battle for who has the best argument, who can win the best argument, who won't back down in a way. And to me, that's unnecessary, and it's unnecessary and it's pointless, because at the end of the day, I want truth. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong about something, as long as I've learned what the right thing is, or as long as I've been enlightened to, okay, whatever I believe is wrong, thank you. Now I want to know what the right belief is. So stuff like that. That's something that I've been pondering as well. And I think that also goes into, again, religious beliefs and faiths and stuff like that. Because then one could say, well, then how do we know that Christianity is the true religion? How do we know that Islam is the true religion? Stuff like that. And of course, there's faith that comes into it, and a lot of and it bothers me when I see Christians do this, to be honest. Well, you just have to have faith, and they don't necessarily try to work on their reasoning behind why they have these faiths. It just seems like a blind following of the faith. This is what I grew up believing, and so therefore that's what I'm going to believe it. And then a lot of people also have confirmation biases too. They're okay, this is what I grew up believing, so now I'm just going to look for all of the evidence to prove this right, rather than to see what the actual truth is. And I feel if you really want to find truth, then you have to try and avoid and root out your biases as much as possible. And in order to do that, then you have to learn from other people who actually believe things that are contrary to you. So I talked to, Satanists, and I've talked to atheists, and I've talked to, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, and, even other Christians, and all of these people, and I gather the perspectives, and I see what we all believe and what we agree on and what we don't agree on. And I just look at all of these different things to kind of compare, and I have a constantly developing Venn diagram in my head to be able to look at all of these things and compare them and see okay, so this is where everything is in common, or this is what this and that have in common, this is what this and that don't have in common. So which one is the truth? Okay, well, we can discard that because that doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't line up with history, yada, 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 etc. So I think that that's one way in which that you can search to find truth. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a long-winded way of saying that you can't really know for sure what certain truths are. So even though I believe in an absolute truth, I'm also aware that that's my personal bias, if you will. That's my personal subjective reasoning that there is an absolute truth out there. Just like other people may have a subjective personal reasoning that there's not an absolute truth, and so many other things can exist. Maybe we're all wrong, maybe we're all right, but it's just, this, that. For me, I personally believe, like, no, there is an absolute truth there. And just because we're not perceiving the absolute truth accurately does not mean that it's not there. And I think that there's a quote even from the Boondocks, where he said that shoot he said, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. And then Riley was like, what? He was like, there are known unknowns, and there are also unknown unknowns, things that we know that we don't know. And then he was like, what? And so pretty much what he was saying was that there are so many things in the world that we don't know. We just don't know what they are. And we are aware. It's almost like the Johari window, where it's like one square is what we know about ourselves and what other people know about us. Another square is what other people know about us, but what we don't know about ourselves. Another square is what we know about ourselves, what other people don't know about us. And then another square is like what nobody knows. It's kind of like the same way when we're perceiving the world, There's things that everybody knows about the world, and there's things that only maybe that wasn't the best analogy. It just came to my head at the moment. But I hope that you guys get what I'm saying. That there's just things that we are aware that we know about the world, that we are aware that we don't know about the world. We don't know just how deep the sea goes. But we do know that it goes deeper, and that we are unaware of how deep it goes. But then there's also things that we don't even know that we don't know. Yeah, I'm sounding like very nebulous and abstract and stuff and existential, but yeah, that's some of the things that I've been going through my mind, and now I'm gonna roll through this chat real quick, just to answer anything before I may move on. And we can always like circle back, but I'm just trying to like throw out my stream of consciousness right now, before I guess like I start really like slowing down the video to start addressing things. What's up, Austin? So Niall says, truth can never be 100% objective when you think about it. People have different ways of thinking, which can lead to different impressions on what is it and what isn't. Yeah, pretty much. So the more deep something is, the less objective the truth will be. And if we're using the definition of objective in the sense that there's a specific empirical. I think that's the word that I like to use instead of objective, especially like in the type community, because Carl Jung used objective as having to do with an object, having to do with something in the external. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's empirical, so FE, for example, could be used is seen as an objective function, but that doesn't necessarily mean that whatever it's observing, like if an FE user observes an interaction, that doesn't mean that they are always 100% infallibly correct about what they're perceiving of that function. The objective just means that they're observing something on the external world. It's more externally focused. But when we use the word empirical, that means that like this is just absolute fact that everybody can believe it. And so, yeah, I think that's what I believe that's what Niall's trying to say, that truth can never really be like, well, I wouldn't say never. And again, that's just my opinion. But I think that there are truths that are just clearly empirical, and there are truths that are not, like that are it's based off of like what we believe, and how we view the world, and how other people may view the world, and we may lack resources and everything, even things such as like the world being flat and the world being round and everything. I believe that there's an absolute answer to what that is, but regardless of whatever we believe, not saying the people who believe that it's round are wrong, but it's not empirical because we are yet to go and see that for ourselves, which is why we have people who are flat earthers, because they can't really trust what's been given to us, and they have their own reasoning as to why they believe whatever. And so then you start looking at each other like, you guys are so dumb and everything. And I don't know. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, there's just a lot more things that are not as empirical as we may think they are. And so, yeah, most Muslims think the Earth globe is flat. I kind of like read that too. Um, I won't get into that right now. The whole flat Earth versus round Earth debate. I'd say it's a cube. I'm just kidding. I don't say it's a cube, but anyway, Lonnie, what's up, man? Greetings, Risa. This is a cool way to connect and share our ideas and viewpoints. Yes, that's actually what I'm like trying to aim for. I haven't posted, like I said, a video in a while because I've been so busy. I'm always either driving, like traveling somewhere, or I am at work, Buffalo Wild Wings work. And pretty much if I had a faster computer, like a faster like iMovie MacBook Pro thing, then I would have made like a lot more videos. But it takes so long now to use my iMovie on here that I just honestly like get lazy. And after all the work that I've already been doing, then it's like, I'm just going to sit down and relax and use this time to like relax instead of making a video or something like that, because I can get really lost in video editing and everything. And when it starts taking too long, then it's like, man, I spent all of my free time working on a video. But yeah, I like this right now because, all of you guys can just show up right now and we can all just like discuss. And so I'm going to try and do these like more often. And maybe I'll even have like pointed subjects at times for us to be able to discuss. Lonnie says, agreed, arguments are a waste of time. If you can't open your mind to the other person's perspective, we should be confident in what we believe, but still be in search for the overall truth. I 100% agree with that. I feel like if we are both looking for truth, then nobody should be afraid of losing face. That's how I see it. Like I'm never, in my opinion, afraid of losing face, because at the end of the day, I have no problem telling somebody like, oh, dang, you know what? You're right. I was wrong. But thank you for enlightening me. Thank you for guiding me to that, to this right answer, because all along, that's what I wanted. I just wanted the right answer, or I at least wanted to know for sure if I had the wrong answer. So I'm always like just holding on to what makes the most sense to me until somebody can present something that makes better sense. And I realized once again, using TI and everything, like just because something makes logical sense doesn't make it right, but that still also doesn't make it wrong. So I'm just always looking to refine whatever I believe, and clarify what I believe rather than coerce what I believe. I made a video about that, clarifying versus coercing, where instead of being someone who goes out there and starts like telling people confidently, like this is what you should believe and this that and this that. I just explain to people like, hey, this is what I believe right now. This is why I believe it. After all of this research that I've done and after these conversations and yada, 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 and viewing these viewpoints and perspectives and all of that, yes, it's a pretty rigorous process, but that's what I've landed on. However, I am open to having my mind changed if you can present information that I haven't already considered yet and it happens to make sense and be right. But until then, yeah, sure, I'm going to still stick with whatever I still believe. So yeah, that's how I see it. The person who I would love to interview would be Lazarus. Would it just be because he died and was resurrected? So then you'd want to like know how that transition was? Because yeah, I feel like that'd be pretty dope. But I wonder how long of an interview that would be. And then that even brings in like spiritual things, like, so was he in Sheol that whole time? Was he in paradise? was his soul just like wandering or asleep during that time? Like, and then he wouldn't even like remember. Yeah, I don't know. Lazarus wouldn't be in my top 10 to interview, but if I had an opportunity to interview him, like, yeah, I'd definitely pick that up. Like, why not? My thoughts examining creation, the earth and the universe leads us toward objectivity. Before humans could argue about subjectivity, there existed an orderly and precise universe. Maybe you're probably explaining right now. And Lonnie says, I do the same thing, Denzel, constant comparing and contrasting. Yeah, man, we seem pretty similar. A universe that operates according to unchanging laws. I think the architect that designed those things has the best viewpoint. The truth. Yeah. I believe that the architect is God. And I believe that when we look at, arguments such as like fine tuning, for example, and just a lot of other philosophical things to look at. Even if you're looking at things like evolution, I believe that there's genius, there's intelligence that's like moderating all of this stuff, and it started from somewhere. And so, that's how I see it. I think the problem with perception is that we humans have been conditioned to deceive ourselves. Huh. In childhood, our parents and others teach us to discount what we observe or sense. So early on, we develop false beliefs. If in our everyday reality we believe what isn't true, dad loves me even though he's abusive, how can we process deeper topics like absolute truth? But then, that's not always the case for everybody. Like, and I know that was just one example, but like, not that I had an abusive dad, but some people can even still make sense of such things. Like, okay, yeah, dad loves me even though he's abusive, but it's because I'm a bad boy. I do things that make him lose his temper. Or he has a condition, like a mental condition that just allows him to not be able to stop. These excuses that someone could make as to why somebody is the way they are. I don't know. Children only imitate their atmosphere. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that I would agree with that. Depending on the children's upbringing, and then and that even includes their atmosphere, includes things that they see on TV. So yeah, I think I think I can get with that. Charles, hey, what's up, man? Very humble Ti. I appreciate it, man. Niall, you seem to use more of your NI in videos than FE. Oh, well, thanks, man. I think. I mean, not that I thought that you were making an insult at all, but yeah, I've just been, yeah. To be honest, my favorite function, fun fact, is TI. Um, that's not to say that that's the function that I'm the strongest in. Definitely not. I think that I'm strongest in FE, which makes sense. But my favorite function is TI, and I think that that's what helps me a lot with my FE. And the function that I work the most on is NI. So yeah, I guess that would like kind of like make sense. Like for me, my path of growth is working a ton on my NI, which then the scraps of food that I give my NI also fall to my TI. And then my TI starts to pick that all up, even before I even knew that that's what was happening. And it starts to grow and develop as well. So then it starts to naturally grow, but I don't think I actually ever like really fixate on growing it or developing it. Then, but my FE, I work on that a lot too. Like, I think that just because a function is your dominant function does not mean that the function is something that you are just that incredibly good at. I think that your dominant function still requires work. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of like flowing, guys, as you guys can see, answering things as they come along. And I'm trying to think like what other things that I've been thinking about. Here's another one, actually. So let me check something. Okay, cool. Just making sure. But yeah, so I see a lot of people, especially when it comes to typology. It's fun to be an enthusiast about this and like really look at the theory and everything. And this is not, disclaimer, this is not to say that I'm better than anyone. This is not to say, anything like that to condescend anybody. But like, I think that there really is a big difference between just looking at the theory of something, like reading a whole bunch of books and all of that, versus actually like practicing it, like in coaching and discussing with people in real life to say, hey, this is what I read in the theory. Does this match up with what I see in the real world? And then adding on to that theory from your own experience and seeing the consistency there. And then being able to integrate that whole process. I feel like that is something that I've been learning a lot, especially like when I've been in profiler training with Personality Hacker. We will go to. Sorry, that happens when I talk a lot and fast. But we at 5-day events in profiler training, you will meet a whole bunch of people who literally like you'll meet a whole bunch of people who know their type, and it's like accurate, like like they know what type they are, but they are coming out in a way that we may not be familiar with because all we've done is like read about these people or typed people who aren't as self-aware. And so at profiler training, you get to see like every type at their best in a way, and you start to see how you may have like really limited certain types with stereotypes, like ENTJs. I know about 3 or 4 ENTJs from profiler training who were, before I went to profiler training, I had a different mindset of how they were. And then I met them and I was like, wow, the ones who are actually not only healthy but developed, because there's a difference. You can be healthy and then you can be developed. The ones who are actually like developed, they're not at all like, well, not at all, but yeah, no, actually I would say that like almost not at all like how the ones that I've been like reading about are, and so that development can really change, but you can still see that they use TENISEFI, and they know these things about themselves. And so I think that it's important. It's very important, like when you're typing people, when you're practicing personality psychology and everything, that you learn to that you learn to integrate it into your real life, that you start to see how these things actually look, because we also have to try and trust each other's like information. And that's another thing like my FETI is always like looking for, like consistency in our language and our terminology and what we believe and what we don't believe. Because like, for example, someone posted on Twitter the other day, like, what type do you believe Santa Claus is? And I thought, again, not saying anything better, like I'm better or anything, but I thought that it was like that's one person or concept. If we think of Santa as a concept, that's one person or concept that the whole type community be like, oh, that's easy. ESFJ, like classic, or at least some form of SFJ, because it just made so much sense. But I saw so many different answers that I was like, wow, not that they're wrong, just because I disagree with them, but it's like wow, so we can't even agree on what type Santa Claus is? And then it's like looking at some of the answers, I'm like, how did you get that? So then that makes me end up being like, okay, well, how can I trust you when you say, yeah, so my cousin who is ISTP, well, how do I know that if I meet your cousin, I'm not going to actually think that he's an ENTJ? Like stuff like that. We have to learn to trust each other's information. In order to be able to trust each other's information, we have to refine our information. We have to integrate it in a certain way. And then we also have to discuss it to be able to be on the same page. So yeah, that's another thing that I've been thinking about. Let me get back to Niall. I don't know what type I am, but I honestly hate it. I'm naturally good at a lot of things, but I use a crutch to not try hard in life, and then I feel like I'm not reaching my potential. I feel being unskilled. I'd better is better than being naturally good at stuff. I feel being unskilled is better than being naturally good at stuff. I think I see. Okay, I see what you're saying. Huh. Okay, so you have a natural talent for several things in life. And because of that, that's caused you to have a laziness, for lack of better words, uh, to developing more skills and more talent, even in the things that you're already good at. Well, yeah, that's really tough. Um, I feel like I actually have a lot to say about that. Um, and we could definitely get to coaching with that sometime in 2020, which is what I'm also about to talk about uh, before I maybe like wrap this up. And I'll try and do these like more often. But like I said, I was just free today, and I was like, hey, I was literally in the grocery store with Jamila, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna make a live stream today because I haven't posted a video in a while. And I'm just gonna share some thoughts, whether people come on or not. Hey, that's on them. I'm just gonna share some things that I've been thinking about, and see what we do with that. And then eventually, maybe I might start doing that a little bit more often, share some updates, etc. So yeah, but anyway, I think the best advice I could give for that, if you're looking for advice, is that look at how much better you would be if the things that you already know are already skilled at, you continue to sharpen them. Think about that. I feel like that could be motivation to help you to become even better overall, And so, yeah, I think that would be something. And I'd also say try to develop them even more so that you can start teaching other people how to do them. I feel like you're not necessarily an expert or pro or whatever at anything until you're able to teach other people. So if you can look at all of those skills that you already naturally have and you can teach other people those skills, like break it down to a level that's super dumbed down that anybody can learn this skill now and become exceptionally good at it, then I applaud you. But until you're able to do that, then no matter how quote unquote skilled you are, it's not, or talented you are, it's still not skilled enough to be able to be like as impressive. And that's just my opinion. That's just my take, So I think that's something that, you could potentially think about. I have a type related question. Have you ever thought you were an INFP? I ask because of my own type dilemma. Others describe me as an ENFJ, but I relate to the INFP profile. Last question, purely curious. Was your wife upset when you mentioned JWs and Mormons? She left the room after that. No, she's not upset. She just, I think that she just went to go listen to music. She's working on some things, and they involve her listening to a lot of different albums, a lot of different artists, and so whenever we do have free time, and I'm doing something that she's probably not as particularly interested in, then she'll go ahead and go work on her own thing, and that's fine with me. But yeah, no, she wasn't upset at all about that. To answer your previous question, I actually receive INFP. I've been typed INFP a lot on profiles, especially socionics tests. But yeah, on Myers Briggs tests, I've been typed as INFP um, pretty often, and I find that to be funny because I'm definitely not an INFP, but I wonder if it could be because of Enneagram type for me. Like I'm an Enneagram 9, and so maybe like my stereotypical way of coming about is not the way that most ENFJs would be. I'm not sure. Uh, and I don't know what Enneagram type that you might be, but yeah, I do feel like INFP and ENFJ um, is not really like that bad of a type difference, I guess, because INFPs and INFJs get mixed up all the time, and then ENFJs and INFJs are very similar. So then an INFP and an ENFJ could also be similar because they're both NFs and they both have the same stack of functions, just different polarities. So like they're both feeling, intuitive, sensing, and thinking. And I think that when you're looking at it from that point of view, plus both being NFs, there's a lot to take from that. Just like how weirdest thing, but some ESTPs can look like ISTJs and some ISTJs can look like ESTPs. I know it's crazy, but I've seen it, and I think it's because the sensing, thinking, feeling, intuition, and when you look at things like in that type of way, then the external things, yeah, they can kind of appear in a different form. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Have I ever thought I was an INFP? Technically, no. I've never thought that, but I could see how people would think that just from how I may be presented, but not necessarily on a cognitive level. I don't relate to the Myers-Briggs FI, nor NE, nor SI, nor inferior TE. But the way that an INFP may act or be presented, I could see that. And I get along pretty well with INFPs. A few of my favorite people on the entire planet are INFP. And so, yeah. But okay. I didn't want to make this like too long. Just wanted to pop in and say hello and share a few thoughts and all of that jazz. So yeah. Hey, yeah, no problem. But I think the last thing that I'll say is I'm gonna definitely be trying to do more of these. Maybe I'll make announcements in advance, but honestly, just try to ride with me, because sometimes I just wake up and I'm saying, hey, you know what? I have time today. I'm just going to make a video. And whether people show up or not, I'm going to go ahead and at least have something to riff on. And people can watch it afterwards, So you just have to keep your eyes peeled. Also, y'all are the first to know this, but for 2020, I have a lot of things coming up, which is another reason why I haven't really been on YouTube. There's one huge thing that I'm really excited about, but I'm trying not to be excited about, that I'm kind of like waiting to see how that goes. We have to wait until July to see how that looks. But be praying about that. If all goes well, this would be a pretty dope thing that I've been anticipating and waiting on. But in the meantime, another thing that I said that you guys first know, me and Jamila are planning to move to Atlanta next year. So if any of y'all are out there in ATL, I know my boy Lonnie is and everything. Um, yeah, that's kind of like the goal. We're planning to move to Atlanta, and I'm trying to build a lot of my clientele over there. Like I want to do more coaching in person in real life because I feel like that'll be a lot more effective. I'm gonna try and also like work around like my pricing for that too, and because a boy gotta eat, a boy gotta feed his family, a boy gotta pay bills, stuff like that. So yeah, gotta that's how it is for me right now. So yeah, if you guys are interested in coaching, you can start emailing me now, and I can start planning more, especially for 2020. To be honest, I'm really trying to prioritize like paying clients now. I'm open to, talking with you. Like if you can't pay the full price, we can talk about that. Depending on what exactly you're trying to get. But as of right now, a profiling session is $100 for a full profiling session with the details and all of that. And then a coaching session is 125. And I try to make it to where it's always worth the money that you're spending. And I try to make it also so that it just really resonates with the person. So this money all goes to a great cause, which is keeping me and Jamila alive and out of jail for not being able to pay bills. And so yeah, um, be sure to email me at DEEZY number 2 blessed at iCloud.com. Put in the subject or title profiling session or coaching session. And I do, theology. Like, we can talk theology, we can talk personal development, like a personal awareness, relationship coaching, whether it be you and your mom, you and your girlfriend, you and your boyfriend, you and your son, whatever it may be. I can help out with all of that too. Shoot, yeah, like whatever. Or if you just want to literally just sit down and talk, like we can definitely do that too. So yeah, that's some of the updates there. Just make sure, is the typing section gonna? Yeah, nah, yo, I'm always thinking of you, man. I'm telling you. Like I said, I work so much that if we're being honest, it's like, okay, during my free time, it's like, okay, should I use this limited free time to relax or to do a free profiling session? And it's like, let me relax because I know that tomorrow or in a few hours, I have work to do or I have other things to tend to. Like today, all day, I had a whole checklist of things that I had to get to. So yeah, man, that's but we're gonna get to it, man. We're gonna get to it. I trying to prioritize all of these things, and just let me know again, like financially, like what you can swing, man, to help us out. Is the secret that you're eagerly waiting for the release of Chris Nolan's Tenet? I actually did not even know about Chris Nolan's Tenet, so that wasn't the secret, but that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's something that I should be like looking forward to, right? But anyway, Darth Orgasm. Wow, that's a really interesting name. How was poppin', homie? Just chilling and maxing and relaxing and shooting some b-ball outside the school. Just pimping it out in my crib, dog. Okay, cat. That's awesome. Yeah, his newest movie. I need to go check out the trailer because I haven't really seen it. But I'm gonna check it out and maybe if you comment below, I will comment back when I've actually looked at it, and I'll let you know what I think about it. Um, but yeah, I think that's everything. And leave comments, questions, concerns. Also comment, if you have any questions, whatever that I didn't get to address in this live chat. And in my next one, I will keep a note of them so that I can address them in the next one. But yeah, thanks y'all for tuning in. Do you think Jesus would die on the cross for a Klondike bar? Unfortunately, not. I feel like Jesus is a very selfless person, but when it comes to bars, specifically those of the Klondike, I don't think that his compassion stretches that far. Darth Orgasm, what is the meaning of life? Well, your username kind of says it all, right? um, Life doesn't have one meaning. That's what I'll say. So the meaning or the purpose of life is to fillet out all of the different meanings and purposes of life. Then that's just my subjective opinion. Thankfully, all the weird questions are coming just as you end this chat. Right. Is life worth living if you have a tiny penis? Yeah, I think it is. I personally don't have a say on that, and that's all I will say. But I'm sure that there are people out there who are making a great living, who are not as blessed in that area, but that is okay. And Throm, the state that I'm in right now, is Virginia. Planning to move to Atlanta next year, so we'll see. But all right. Cool. Follow me on Twitter, DWZY _blessed. Follow me on Instagram, DWZY _blessed. So, yeah, I think that we're done now. One, done.